Get ready, listener, because we are about to take a deep dive into prehistory, like way back. We're talking almost 50 million years.
Wow, that's a long time.
It is, and today we are tackling the era that set the stage for, well, us.
You mean like the dawn of man?
Exactly. The Cenozoic era, better known as the Age of Mammals.
Oh, okay, the Age of Mammals. I've heard about this.
And we'll be exploring this era using the Urantia book, specifically paper 61.
Cool. So we'll uncover all those fascinating events that shaped this period, right?
You got it. It's a period of major change, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I mean, the world was still recovering from the whole dinosaur thing, right?
Right. But it wasn't just a desolate wasteland, was it?
No, not at all. Think more like lush forests, wide open plains, animals everywhere. It was like an animal paradise, kind of.
Okay, so how do we go from, like, reptilian overlords to mammals?
That's the interesting part. The Urantia book talks about this surprising ancestor for placental mammals. You ready for this?
Hit me with it.
A small, agile, carnivorous dinosaur.
Really? A dinosaur?
Yep. Not your typical lumbering T-Rex, though. This one was built for speed and intelligence, characteristics that would become really important for their mammal descendants, as you can imagine.
Wow, not the ancestor I was picturing. So these early mammals, what gave them an edge? There were still plenty of reptiles around, right?
Oh, yeah, but these guys had a few tricks up their sleeves. They had live births, they took care of their young, and they had a knack for adapting, thanks to their ever-evolving brains.
Okay, I can see how that would be helpful.
Take kangaroo ancestors, for example, just hopping around, or those tiny horses just starting to make their mark. And get this, there was even this ostrich-like bird laying these massive eggs.
Hold on. A bird laying giant eggs. That doesn't sound very mammal to me.
It just goes to show that evolution takes some wild turns. Remember, it's not a straight line. These mammals were testing things out, trying new things, and setting the stage for a huge takeover.
And all this while continents were moving and the climate was doing its own thing, right?
Exactly. Imagine Europe almost completely underwater with only the Alps and Pyrenees poking out like islands. Those kinds of geological shakeups, plus changing sea levels and volcanic activity, really put the pressure on. Adapt or die, you know.
Intense. So in the middle of all this change, a new type of food pops up, angiosperms. Were these plants a big deal for our mammal friends?
Huge deal. Angiosperms were basically an all-you-can-eat buffet for grazing mammals. They provided plenty of nutritious food and really fueled the rise of, let's just say, things were about to get big.
Here comes the part I've been waiting for. We're talking about giant mammals now, right? The ones we know today, just, supersized.
Precisely. Around 25 million years ago, placental mammals took center stage. They outcompeted those reptiles, and it was the era of megafauna. Picture enormous herds of horses evolved from their three-toed ancestors thundering across North America.
Now that's a sight I wish I could have seen. And speaking of amazing sights, we can't forget about elephants. I mean, those creatures were gigantic. What made them different from the other giants?
Their intelligence, believe it or not. The Urantia book talks about their incredible brain power, even comparing it to early humans. It's fascinating to consider what intelligence looked like in a pre-human world. Did they communicate in complex ways, solve problems? These are questions scientists are still trying to answer today.
Elephants. The brainiacs of the animal world. I never knew.
But good times and warmer climates don't last forever, do they? What happens to our mammal friends as we journey further into the Cenozoic era?
Well, it starts to get a bit chilly. The earth cools down and plants and animals have to migrate to find more comfortable places to live.
Oh, this doesn't sound good. Is this where those ice ages come in?
I got it. But before we dive into that frosty territory, there's another important development we need to talk about, one that leads to the appearance of a truly remarkable creature.
Let me guess. Humans. Bingo. But the road to humanity is full of unexpected turns and fascinating ancestors. And it all starts with a group of lemur-like creatures. At least that's what the Urantia book tells us.
Lemur-like creatures. Okay, now you've got my attention. Tell me more.
Okay, picture this. About 20 million years ago, in Central Asia, the ancestor to both primitive monkeys and gorillas emerged. But it's a different group, equally as fascinating, that holds the key to our evolutionary past.
So we're interested in these lemur-like creatures then. What made them stand out?
While those other primates were busy evolving, these lemur-like creatures were changing and adapting too, setting the stage for something extraordinary. The dawn mammals.
Dawn mammals. It sounds almost mythical. Were they like a cross between lemurs and humans?
Imagine small, agile creatures, mostly walking upright. and with bigger brains than their ancestors. The Urantia book places their arrival a bit west of India. They were descendants of those North American lemur types who migrated across ancient land bridges.
These ancestors of ours were real globetrotters. But what makes these dawn mammals so special? It sounds like brain power played a big role.
Absolutely. The Urantia book really stresses their larger brain size compared to other animals at the time. This brain power, plus their ability to walk upright, was a major leap forward in evolution.
It's like all the pieces for humanity were starting to come together. Intelligence, walking on two legs, you can almost see it happening.
And this is where things get really interesting. Within just 70 generations of the dawn mammals appearing, a new, even more advanced group branched off, the mid-mammals.
70 generations? That doesn't seem like very long at all.
It's incredibly fast in terms of evolution. It tells you there was a lot of pressure to change, and it happened quickly. These mid-mammals were almost twice the size of the dawn mammals, even smarter and ready for the next big step.
Welcome back, listener. Last time we left off with those mid-mammals, super smart, walking upright and on the verge of something big.
Right, they were like the stars of the show, those mid-mammals.
So no more delays. Let's get back to the Urantia book and find out how humans entered the picture.
Okay, so remember how the Earth's climate was going a bit haywire back then? Those glaciers we talked about? Well, they were about to play a big part in this whole evolution thing.
Okay, paint us a picture. What was going on when humans first appeared?
Imagine this. About 1 million years ago, with the Earth cooling down and glaciers taking over, something incredible happened. One of the mid-mammals had a mutation.
Just one mutation, and that changed everything.
Yep. One little mutation that would change the course of history. And from that single mutation, the Urantia book says 2 primitive humans were born, the very first humans on Earth.
Wow. It's mind-blowing when you think about it. All those years, and it came down to that. So what was life like for these early humans? It was the start of the Ice Age, wasn't it?
Talk about a rough start. Imagine being one of the first humans, looking around at a world covered in ice. The Urantia book really emphasizes how challenging it was back then.
Survival of the fittest, right from the beginning. But the Urantia book also talks about how intelligent these early humans were, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. They were smart, adaptable, and resourceful. They learned to work together, use tools, and find shelter from the cold. They had to survive.
The Urantia book even says that the Eskimos, who are considered descendants of these original humans, are still drawn to colder climates today. It makes you wonder if it's like a distant memory from their ancestors. But were there other creatures evolving alongside humans?
Absolutely. The Urantia book says there was another line, also descended from the mid-mammals, that went in a different direction.
You mean those simian creatures, the ancestors of apes and gorillas? What's so important about that?
Well, it shows that evolution doesn't always mean things get better. Humans kept evolving, but the simian tribes stayed pretty much the same. The Urantia book even says they regressed a bit.
That's wild. So back to the glaciers. They weren't just a pretty backdrop, were they? What impact did they have on those early humans?
A huge impact. Imagine North America covered in ice, some of it 20,000 feet thick. The Urantia book says these massive glaciers were so heavy they actually made the Earth's crust sink.
No way. That's hard to imagine. Do you think the ice ages helped or hurt the development of early humans?
It probably did both. On the one hand, the glaciers destroyed habitats and changed the landscape completely. But on the other hand, they forced humans to adapt and innovate. Those who could figure things out and work together survived and passed on their genes.
So the ice ages were tough, but they pushed humans to evolve. That makes sense. We're not done with the ice ages yet, though, are we? The Urantia book mentions several, right?
You got it. 6 different ice ages, and each one left its mark on the planet and everyone on it. Remember those 6 colored races we mentioned? The Urantia book says they appeared during the 5th glacial advance, about 500,000 years ago.
Hold on, so while the glaciers were busy rearranging continents, humans were going through their own transformation. That's a lot to take in. Welcome back to our deep dive into the age of mammals. We left off with those 6 colored races appearing as the Ice Age raged on. It's hard to imagine.
It was a wild time, that's for sure. Those glaciers weren't just there for show, you know. Imagine the whole world covered in ice. Can you imagine being those early humans?
It boggles the mind. 6 ice ages. It makes you wonder if that had anything to do with those different races appearing, you know?
That's a great question. The Urantia book doesn't really say for sure, but it makes you think, right? Maybe those tough conditions played a part in making humans so diverse. It's a puzzle scientists are still trying to solve.
It's crazy to think about how long this all took, like millions of years.
I know, right? It's hard to wrap your head around it.
But through it all, life found a way. It kept adapting, kept changing, and eventually we got humans like us. It's amazing when you think about it.
And you know what? We're actually closer to that time than you might realize. According to the Urantia book, the last ice age ended about 35,000 years ago.
Really? That recently?
That's right. That's when the Holocene epoch started, the one we're still in today.
Wow, that's not that long ago, considering everything that happened. So, once the ice finally melted and the world started to look a bit more like it does now, what happened to all those tough humans?
They spread out, basically. They went all over the globe, taking with them everything they'd learned from surviving those crazy times. Think about it. Their strength, their ability to adapt, their smarts, all passed down from those who came before.
It's like they were given the ultimate survival guide written by their ancestors.
Exactly. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the Cenozoic era, let's remember this epic journey. From tiny creatures outrunning dinosaurs to the dawn of humanity in a frozen world, it's a story of constant change, incredible resilience, and the incredible power of life to find a way.
It really puts things in perspective, doesn't it? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, listener. And a huge thanks to our expert for guiding us through this fascinating period of history.
My pleasure. It's always a blast to talk about this stuff.